Today we are taking up Andrew Marvell's To His Coy Mistress. Before we begin the poem, let us have a look at the life and works of Andrew Marvell. John Marvell, he was a metaphysical poet and he was born on 31st March 1621. Marvell grew up in the Yorkshire town of Hull, England, where his father, Reverend Andrew Marvell, was a lecturer at Holy Trinity Church and master of the Charterhouse. At age 12, Marvell began his studies at Trinity College, Cambridge. 4 years later, two of Marvell's poems, one in Latin and one in Greek, were published in an anthology of Cambridge poets. After receiving his bachelor's degree in 1639, Marvell stayed on at Trinity, apparently to complete a master's degree. In 1641, however, his father drowned in the Hull estuary and Marvell abandoned his studies. Marvell died on August 16, 1678. His works include Upon Appleton House, The Garden, The Moor to the Glowworms, The Coronet, and Horatian Ode. Upon Cromwell's return from Ireland, The Unfortunate Lover, A Dialogue Between the Soul and the Body. The complete poems contain all his poems. Themes generally dealt with in the poems are universe, existence, love, and religion. Now we come to this poem and we'll know a bit about it. To His Coy Mistress. It was most likely written in the 1650s in the midst of the English interregnum. The poem was not published until the 1680s after Marvell's death. To His Coy Mistress is a carpe diem poem. It means that enjoy what you have today. This is the theme of the poem. That enjoy today, live in today, and do not think about the future. Following the example of the Roman poets like Horace, and it urges a young woman to enjoy the pleasures of life before death claims her. In the process, however, the speaker dwells with grotesque intensity on death itself. Death seems to take over the poem, displacing the speaker's energy and filling the poem with dread. To His Coy Mistress is clever, well-structured poem, a dramatic monologue, in effect, the speaker progressing logically through the stages of persuasion in an effort to turn the lady's head and heart. Marvell, addressing his sweetheart, says that the woman's reluctance with him would be fine if life wasn't so short, but such a plan is a fantasy because in reality, our time on earth is short, it's limited. The poem appears to serve a dual purpose. First, to persuade the mistress to love, and secondly, to comment on mortality in its inevitability and grotesqueness. It is the latter objective which adds the philosophical aspect to this love poem. This poem is admired for its metaphysical imagery. Metaphysical poetry was primarily known for the use of extended metaphor and conceit, as well as unlikely comparisons between abstract and worldly ideas. The term metaphysical was applied to a small group of 17th century poets, Marvell among them. In case you do not understand or you have a problem in understanding, you may refer to the Metaphysical Poets video put up by me. To His Coy Mistress is written in iambic tetrameter and rhymes in couplets AA, BB, CC, DD, and as we deal with the lines, I will show this to you, the rhymings. During the first stanza, the speaker tells the mistress, had we. It begins with this word, had we, more time and space, her coyness wouldn't be a crime. He extends this discussion by describing how much he would compliment her and admire her if only there was time. He would focus on parts of her body until he got to the heart. Let's look at the lines. I'm taking the first 7 lines first. Now look at the beginning. Had we but world enough and time, this coyness, lady, were no crime. So he says, if we had so much of time with us, then you could keep on being shy. Right now, because this is not so. Now, had we, meaning if that were the condition. So this means that at now, this is not the condition. So he says, right now, if you inverse it, it means right now it is a crime to be shy. Why? Because they do not have limitless time with them. We would sit down and think which way to walk and pass our long love's day. If they had so much time at their disposal, they would sit down and leisurely discuss, okay, which way to go, what to do. Thou by the Indian Ganges side shouldst rubies find. Says you could be on the banks of river Ganga, which is supposed to be a very holy river for the Indians, the Hindus, and she could try and find rubies out there, which is an impossible task. You do not have rubies on the bank of the Ganges. and I by the tide of Humber would complain, while he would be there by the river Humber in England, and he would be complaining and writing love songs about her. Now if you look at the rhyme here, you can see time rhymes with crime. Line 1 with 2, lines 3 with 4, way, day, side, tide. So you see the rhyme scheme, if you take just the 6 lines, it's A, A, B, B, C, C, and this goes on throughout the poem. The speaker starts off by telling the mistress that if there was enough time and enough space, then her coyness wouldn't be a criminal act. But if they had all the time and space they wanted, they could leisurely consider where they might go, what they should do. She could be there by the side of the river Ganges. He could be here by the side of the Humber estuary, and he would be writing complaining poems to her. This would place them definitely far from each other. Let's take the next lines. I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of the Jews. Now, what flood is he talking about? You find the use of the flood, which means he's talking about the flood that came during Noah's time, reference to the Bible. And you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of the Jews. Until the time that the Jews get converted, that's future, she could keep on refusing. When they would have enough time at their disposal, when time was not running away, when life would be limitless. So he refers to the past, talking about the flood. So he would start loving her when 10 years before the flood came, Noah's flood, during the time of Noah, and she could refuse when? Till the conversion of the Jews. My vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow. This is a wonderful metaphor you have here, where love is being compared to what? A vegetable. Just like vegetables grow very slowly, similarly his love would grow slowly, and things which grow slowly have a more permanent nature, obviously. Vaster than empires. How big would the love grow? It would grow vaster than empires and more slow. The growth would be slower than the growth of empires. Why? Because empires grow, there's just one fight or maybe two, and then the result comes out that who won the battle. But then his love would grow very slowly, just like vegetables. We can imagine here a cabbage growing, one turn of leaf coming, then the other turn of leaf coming, and slowly it's growing. So his love would grow like a vegetable. It would grow larger than an empire in size, but more slowly. And 100 years should go to praise thine eyes, and on thy forehead gaze. For 100 years he would praise her eyes and her forehead. Now forehead in metaphysical terms, and even in Shakespearean times, Elizabethan age, it referred to the face, the entire face. So 100 years would go to praising the eyes and the face, 200 to adore each breast, and 30,000 to the rest. See, it's so mathematical, it's so calculative. Parts. An age at least to every part, and the last age should show your heart. So he would spend nothing less than 1 age for each parts of her body, and the last part would praise her heart. For lady, you deserve this state, nor would I love at lower rate. He says, you are so beautiful, you are so good, you deserve this state, and I would not love you at a rate which would be lower than this. Now look at the next line. What is the but? But at my back I always hear. What is he hearing? Reality is that he does not have infinite time. Reality is that he can hear time coming behind him. Time's winged chariot hurrying near. Now winged chariot has a reference in Greek mythology to Apollo's chariot. Apollo was the god of time. So Apollo's chariot, which had wings, and time, always we say time flies. Why? Because time has the capacity to move very fast. So Apollo in his winged chariot used to take away time. So time is personified here. See, time's winged chariot hurrying near. What is he hearing from behind? The sound of the chariot of time coming closer and closer. And yonder all before us lie. And says there, if you look in front. So behind, what do you hear? Behind you hear Apollo's chariot coming, time coming, flying. And before us, what do we have? Deserts of vast eternities, sand and sand and sand everywhere. Thy beauty shall no more be found, nor in thy marble vault shall sound my echoing song. He says, when you die and you are put in the grave, your beauty shall not be there, and I shall also not be able to praise you there. When I die and you also die, I won't be singing for you, and you won't be looking beautiful anymore. Then worms shall try thy long preserved virginity. He says, there worms will eat up your body, and all this chastity which you have will go away, and your quaint honor turn to dust. He says, this preserved, skillfully preserved honor of yours will turn to dust, and into ashes all my lust. He says, my desires also will all burn up, and the burnt out things are what? Ashes. So he says, all my desires will go into ashes, turn to ashes. The grave's a fine and private place, but none, I think, do there embrace. Now see, this is an example of dark humor. It is humorous, but then it is dark humor, because he says the grave is a very nice place, it's a fine place, it's a private place, but none, I think, do there embrace. He says people are not able to embrace each other. Even if we are placed next to each other in the grave, we will not be able to hold each other, we will not be able to embrace each other. So the third part starts from here, therefore. So the first started with had we, second but conditional, now therefore. So he says, so now come to the present, now therefore, while the youthful hue sits on thy skin like morning dew. He says, while you are still young, while you are still beautiful, and while thy willing soul transpires. He says, until the time that your soul is still responsive to desires at every pore with instant fires. Now that word transpires reminds us of plants. We hear about the leaves transpiring through their stomatas. So it's just like her soul also is transpiring. Transpiring what? It is responding to desires. So, and while thy willing soul transpires, meaning while the soul is yet responding at every pore with instant fires. So emotion is supposed to be like a fire that burns you. Now let us support us while we may. It says, while we are alive, while we still have the capacity to enjoy ourselves, let's do it. And now, like amorous birds of prey might not essentially be scavengers. They are also birds which kill and eat fresh rather than eating on dead bodies. Then rather at once our time devour. Let's finish our time, let's end our time in one go, rather than languish in his slow chapped power. Why should we suffer by slowly spending our time? Slow chapped power. Slow chapped, as I said, means when you eat and you are slowly chewing your food, that is slow chapped power. So he says, rather than languishing in the power of time, slowly spending your time, why not just finish it off in one go? Let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball. He says, come on, let's roll all the strength, all the emotions we have. Let's make a ball of it. Now this ball here, the imagery is that of a cannonball. A cannonball which is sent through the gates of a city, the iron gates of a city, and destroys the gates. So let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball. So as I said, that ball is a cannonball, and tear our pleasures with rough strife through the iron gates of life. He says, let's enjoy ourselves whilst we can in the present, and let's make a big huge cannonball of our emotions, and let us break the barriers, and let us forget all our inhibitions, and right now let us enjoy ourselves. Just like a cannonball hitting hard upon the iron gates of a city destroys all the security of that city. Stand still. Thus, though we cannot make our sun stand still, yet we will make him run. He says, although we cannot make our sun stand still, means we cannot compel him to stand, meaning we cannot hold time, yet we will make him run. We will get back at time. We will get back at the sun. Why? Because the passage of time results in the passage of because the movement of the sun results in the passage of time. Now if you have any problems with the poem, you want to ask anything, any doubts, please put it in the segment below and I shall answer them. Thank you.